I love Darksiders. It was a franchise birthed from the last generation of consoles, and it had a lot of stuff going for it. Legend of Zelda-style dungeons, a combat system akin to Devil May Cry/God of War, and a unique comic-inspired visual art style. With a remaster of both Darksiders 1 and 2 out now, I couldn't help but dream of what a potential third installment in the series could consist of. So, here's my wishlist of what I want to see in Darksiders 3. First and foremost is 4-player co-op. It has to happen. This is not to say that it is mandatory to play with your 3 best buddies, as AI could be injected to still have a single-player experience. The games have been hinting at this team up for so long now, and seeing the last remaining Nephilim charge into battle side by side would be a true sight to behold. Now, this is the biggest and most distinguishing factor that the third installment in this franchise would have, which in turn would mean that all other aspects of gameplay would need to reflect this. The puzzles this game would include must be applicable to 4 potentially human-controlled characters. These obstacles could start off simply enough with 2 pulling levers while the other 2 stand on switches or something like that, and gradually throughout the game become more challenging and slightly mind-bending. Maybe more along the lines of separating the group in 2, similar to Gears of War, and having one team face off against overwhelming foes while the others have only so much time to figure out how to rejoin you to help even the odds. Having said that, I don't want to see too many because as nice as a good brain teaser can be, focusing too heavily on this particular aspect could cause dissension and exasperation amongst you and your friends who initially were interested in slaying hordes of monsters. Which brings me to my next point. This should be the highlight of the game. All of the horsemen are legendary warriors, and having them fight alongside each other should feel truly epic. Early encounters could see them facing off against a good-sized army of 50 grunts or so, but by the end of the game, we should be charging towards a grand demon army, or an immense host of angels. This emphasis on combat would be only furthered by a deeper combo system. The 2 previous entries utilized simple fighting mechanics, which at times lacks certain gratification when dealing with significant foes. I'm not suggesting that these onslaughts be as long and drawn out as those found in fighting games, but it should reward players for thoughtful consideration as opposed to mindless button mashing. Along with deeper customization for their attacks, I'd also love to see a return of multiple skill trees from Darksiders 2. Allowing us to create our favorite incarnation of each horseman goes a long way to keeping us attached to them. One example could be for Strife, where one tree might focus on aiming down the sights of his pistols, Mercy and Redemption, and blasting away enemies from a distance, or another tree that has him fight similar to Dante's gunslinger style from the Devil May Cry series, where he gets in close and shoots enemies point blank while moving at high speeds. The last pillar of this newly modified combat is combined attacks. This is a must-have. Why fight alongside the other horsemen if not to combine your strength and destroy your enemies with much more ease? I envision an infinite amount of these types of attacks, but they could potentially come in 2 varieties: tandem attacks and team attacks. Tandem attacks being usable quite often, and team attacks being an area-clearing display of carnage. For tandem attack combos could include things like War launching Death into the air for a cool meteor attack, or Fury wrapping her whip around an enemy's throat so Strife could get the perfect headshot. With these attacks, there are considerable risks and rewards. War and Fury are both vulnerable during these maneuvers, but they allow Death and Strife to execute some good damage. On the flip side, team attacks would have all 4 horsemen doing heavy damage to a large number of small to mid-sized enemies, or immense damage to one powerful foe. Examples include, but are definitely not limited to, Fury tripping every enemy in a radius while Strife automatically shoots them, as Death with War hack and slash defenseless foes all in a matter of seconds. Or, on a large enemy, Fury could slice at the creature's legs with her claws, causing it to fall to its knees, while both Death and War amputate an arm, and Strife could do a finishing headshot while standing on top of the beast, a la Legolas style. Forgive me if I was too descriptive on that last one. To make combat even more enticing, the weapons that are used have to feel powerful and unique to each character. One thing that Darksiders 2 did was introduce a loot system, which was fine but inevitably became less about looking cool and more about minor stat increases. Instead of that, I think it would be more fulfilling if, in addition to the aforementioned skill trees for each rider, there would be another skill tree or leveling mechanic for each of their signature weapons. These tools of destruction are iconic and help define who each protagonist is. It gives them a playstyle and an identity that separates them from the others. Disregarding these iconic weapons for copies of the same weapon that have a new color and slight stat increase lessens the impact of how important each of these armaments are to each warrior, and weaken them by association. So please, let us just be the horsemen we chose to be without compromising their identity with a loot hunt. This needs to be a truly awesome tale for all the horsemen to be participating in it. This means that the story could reflect God of War, and that the Horsemen set out to literally destroy the Charred Council, aka the Horsemen's Masters, and everyone else in their path. But this won't be easy because of the other forces of Heaven and Hell intervening. I picture a bloody journey through the White City and dark demonic dungeons. Fights with Uriel, the leader of the Hell Guard, and Samael, a demonic prince, must happen. This could potentially even lead up to the teased Lucifer, who could serve as one of the game's final bosses. One aspect that they can include at some point is the slaughtering of all the Nephilim by the Four, which could be the intro to the game, affording an initial serving of gravitas. The entirety of this story should play out over an interesting and engaging group of settings. Darksiders hit its stride in its second iteration because it ditched the bleak and boring aesthetic of the post-apocalyptic Earth for a more vibrant fantasy-style look. Not only that, but the game's secondary characters were more engrossing and intriguing, which made the world feel more cohesive and lived in. But this adventure will only be strengthened by a strong interplay between the four horsemen. This means dialogue where you're all riding together towards your next objective, establishing relationships and problems amongst the team itself, and strong camaraderie when the going truly gets tough. This game is completely carried on the shoulder of these powerful and unique characters, and shying away from it could keep the game from reaching its amazing potential. Seeing as this would be a game where potentially 4 people could sit down and play the entirety of the campaign together, there needs to be some alternate modes to afford replayability. The first could be as simple as an arcade-style mode for the campaign where netting kills grants you points and bragging rights over the other horsemen. This game is also begging for a horde mode like those seen in the Gears of War franchise. The goal would be to protect a special object or zone from attackers while potentially building up various defenses. I'll do you one better. Make it a horde mode where the 4 horsemen and the angels fight off and slaughter the Nephilim who are attempting to get into Eden. Finally, have a 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 versus mode, the ultimate test to see who the best fighter is amongst the 4 most powerful Nephilim ever. If it isn't apparent by now, I love this franchise. It's a goldmine of untapped potential and could pave the way for a new hybrid of action-adventure co-op that hasn't been managed before. I realize asking for a full campaign with 4-player co-op is a bit much, but that alone would make it stand out from its competitors. At the very least, let me switch between the horsemen on the fly. Hopefully some of these dreams will be fulfilled when the horsemen ride together once more. Agree with my wishlist, soldier? Let me know in the comments below. Also, feel free to like/subscribe to become one of the Legion today, and tell a friend to help bolster our ranks. If you're interested in seeing some of the Darksiders games played live, drop by on the Twitch channel. Thanks for stopping by. Adapt and overcome, and I'll see you next time. You know, now that I think of it, Darksiders could be an amazing anime or CG film. Live action would be a bit difficult, but how cool would it be to see a series or trilogy based on these guys? Regardless, I just want more Darksiders in my life.